Let's start with the Senate and with the Congress. If you were back there now and you were watching what's happening at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, how do you react? Because a lot of senators were apparently caught off guard by this executive order.
I think the reactions will be divided as the Senate is. Republicans clearly will be reluctant to criticize the new president, recognizing that their futures and interests lie with him and his strength and how he'll be able to proceed. At the same time, as some of them are recognizing, this has the potential to do real harm to American interests in the world. And so those who are primarily focused on international affairs will, I think, be very concerned about this.
Well, you already had John McCain and Lindsey Graham, two of your former colleagues, come out opposed to the executive order over the weekend. To what extent, though, going beyond the immigration issue, does this jeopardize or put tension, at least, on the relationship between the new president and the Congress? Because he needs the Congress to get a lot of the reforms through that he's talking about.
He does, but they need him for the same reason from their perspective on the Republican side. My guess is that there are several other Republican senators who are quietly urging the administration to tamp this down and not going public as Senators Graham and McCain have. So I think the concern is more widespread than you're seeing publicly.
Which raises the question, who can actually apply the pressure? Larry Summers spoke earlier about CEO reaction to Mr. Trump's policy.
I've been gratified by what we've heard out of the tech sector. We've heard rather less so far out of the mainstream business community.
Lloyd Blankfein just now to a letter to employees saying that he does not support the ban. Is the power going to come from CEOs versus Congress?
I think it will be mixed from CEOs, but in my experience, what business in America most is concerned about is uncertainty. Not knowing what's going to happen, and predictability is necessary for reasonable long-term and mid-term planning. And I think those views will be made clear to the White House. Some of them public, as you just mentioned, but I think probably substantially more of them privately conveying a message of concern.
And I should point out, to add on, Lloyd Blankfein also saying in that letter that he sees possible disruption to the firm from the Trump order, so more filtering through.
I think what really interests me, we begin a conversation with you and you say that maybe behind the scenes there's some Republicans quietly pushing back against the president. But I just wonder what the risk of this escalating actually is. There is a risk that he goes beyond this and starts looking at some of the immigration policies that tech companies rely on, so they can get some of those H-1B visas through very quickly for the people they need to hire. What's the risk that this escalates and escalates pretty quickly?
Substantial. Perhaps most remarkable about this order is not the substance of the order, but the apparent lack of any preparation, any internal communication, any reaction from those who are administering the law that is being changed. And I think that's got to be a lesson to President Trump and to those in his administration, because he's got almost 4 years to go, and they need to have more deliberate processes, getting a wider range of views before making dramatic changes.
And going beyond the immigration issue, there's a long agenda here of this incoming president. And I wonder about bandwidth issues. If they get distracted on things like this, will they get to things like, for example, corporate tax reform? Bob Iger, that became CEO when you were chair. You had something to do with that, as I recall. He has been for corporate tax reform for some time. Is there a danger here, from the Congress's point of view, that they'll get too distracted with other things and not get to the core issues on the agenda?
That is a danger, but corporate tax reform ought to be at the top of the national agenda. And interestingly, it's one area where both parties agree on the need. They may not agree yet on the precise response to it, but I think it can happen, provided the administration doesn't do there as they've done with respect to immigration.